Hey babes, I'm Miss Mila Rose and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are picking up my Storytime series with the next episode in my Storytime. As a brief recap as to what happened in my last Storytime episode, I had just taken a trip to New York City, Long Island to see a boy. I lost my V card. In today's story time, I am going to be talking about my move to Vancouver. We were still kind of together, still playing League of Legends, still chatting on Skype for the days, weeks leading up to my move to Vancouver. And this chunk of time, I was in a lot of stress trying to figure out where I was going to be living, my flight situation, my budget situation, which was all very vital to making this happen. And I was terrified because this is the first time I would be supporting myself, essentially. I mean, it was always the goal, right? Like, even as early on as like middle school era, I knew it was eventually going to be a thing where I would have to support myself at a young age without much support. So I knew that I would eventually have to get there. It was just going to Vancouver for school was a huge, big push, big nudge for me to actually start doing that. I was on OSAP, which is Ontario's student loans, to be paying my tuition in Vancouver for college. I did pay for my flight, which was going to be arriving in Vancouver about a week or two before my classes actually started. I wanted to get a head start looking for jobs, exploring the city, settling in, so I did not have to worry about that right when classes were starting. Finding a place was very challenging because a lot of places wanted me to go see the place first, and obviously I couldn't do that because A, not enough time, B, I didn't have the money to just fly down there, see a place, come back, and then fly down there and move and live there. I mean, I guess it was possible. I could have been hotel living for a little bit and find a place and then move into that place, but that would have been really expensive and I really didn't have much money on me, so I don't even think that would have been affordable. So I did end up finding one place in Gastown in Vancouver that allowed you to rent with them before seeing the place, and they specifically took a lot of abroad students and stuff, so it worked out. Rent was about $550 a month. I did not know really what I was getting myself into. There was shared rooms for the kitchen and the bathroom, and that my bedroom would be the only like private area I would have. The time leading up towards my flight, I do remember Brittany making more small talk with me again. Like, she had been trying to make small talk with me, and for whatever reason, like, I would just like choke up. Like, I could not speak to this girl. Literally, words would not come out. Like, I would be croaking, trying to get something out, and the most I can muster to say would be very small phrases back. There was something like I'd had a suitcase, and I guess one of the truck drivers that was staying the night took the suitcase, and it was my suitcase. So the mother felt really bad, and the mother got me like a whole brand new suitcase set, which is really kind of her. They really didn't have to do that. I would have just gotten my own new suitcase, but that was really kind of them. So I did have new suitcases to travel with. I remember I had my laptop bag. I bought a laptop bag that I had for years from my friend Jenny. She had bought it for like $200, and she had sold it to me for like $100. It was hardly used. It was very much steampunk, like my kind of fashion, and I didn't have a laptop bag, so I used that as both my laptop bag and also like where I put my wallet stuff, my keys, all that. I used it all throughout college and even a little bit beyond as well. I love that bag so much. It was very durable and it lasted a really long time. And then I had another bag that was kind of like a duffel bag, I think. It was like really big and spacious, and I had I think it was part of the suitcase set that I was given. And then I had like one really big suitcase, and that's where I packed as much as I could. I got rid of a lot of stuff, but I packed as much as I could into the suitcase and into this bag. And Brittany also offered a ride to the airport for the day that I was going to be flying out, which was very helpful, and I couldn't really say no to that. So, I mean, I was going to take the bus. That was the plan. I was going to take the bus. So it was really nice that she offered, and my friend Amy also came to see me off at the airport, which was really nice. But at least the night before my flight, I remember I was very sick and probably like stress-ridden sick. I broke a mass fever the night before my flight. Like, I was like just powering through this through like pure mental. Like, I was so sick. I had high fever. I was sweating buckets that night. It was not good, but I couldn't not go, like, just because I was sick, right? Like, everything was booked, everything was planned. I was starting my school semester. I mean, I could not stay there with my friend's family that I didn't want to not do anything with my life. I didn't want to be a burden to them. So obviously I was gonna make this happen. So regardless, like, the fact that I got super sick, whatever, we're going. I get seen off at the airport. I go on my flight. It's a 6-hour flight to Vancouver from Toronto, and then I'm in the SkyTrain at the airport. I travel to my stop. I was a little confused as to which stop it was, but luckily I did get off at the right stop. I remember I was circling around a big chunk of the downtown area for several minutes, and I didn't know which direction to go. And I remember like feeling really weird, cringe, and also nervous because there was so many homeless people in downtown Vancouver. So many homeless people, and it's raining, it's rainy, it's wet, and it's dark already because it was, you know, fall and cloudy, and it was just, the whole vibes was just very depressing, very like, ugh. I just remembered already hating it, honestly, and also being a little terrified because I didn't know if I was going to find this place. And I finally got to where I was pretty confident was, but there wasn't any obvious sign. It was just like a bar little district in Gastown in downtown Vancouver. And so I couldn't figure out if I was even at the right place. And I'm there with my luggage, and then some teenagers come down around where I was, and they started having a brief conversation with me, just, you know, chatting. Are you here for this place? Where are you from? What's your name? Oh, we live here too. They're like college students too, I think. And I realized I was in the right place, but I couldn't get into the building because you need like a key to actually get in the building. So if you didn't have your key, you're stuck outside in the rain. And they said that the guy who runs the place is just always late because he was supposed to meet me there with the key to my room and show me around and all that stuff. So it was a little reassuring, but also like so unprofessional of this guy for being very tardy. So they actually let me into the building, and I just waited on the inside so I didn't have to wait in the cold and the rain. And once this guy arrived, it's actually really funny because back in my 7th grade story times, I had a teacher, I don't know if I can give him a name, but I'm gonna call him Mr. A. And Mr. A, well, I mean, this guy looked a lot like Mr. A. I mean, it definitely wasn't the same person at all, but like he almost was like the twin of Mr. A. It was weird. This guy showed me to my room. Now, this building was on top of a restaurant, and the situation was very sad. So there was some floors, and there was a kitchen at the end of the hallway where my room was. There was one shared bathroom that had a ticker timer that it would give you light for 5 minutes, and that was the maximum that you could get. There was a toilet, there was a sink, and there was a shower, and it was all the way down the hall. And so yeah, if you wanted more time, you would just have to like keep manually changing the timer for the light. My neighbors were all like very old men. They were like 40-year-old men, mid-40s, and I felt a little uncomfortable by that because I was like, I'm a young teenage female, and all of my neighbors seemed to me really old men, and it felt a little creepy that I was, you know, also sharing this space in the bathrooms and the kitchens with these guys. And the kitchen was honestly like a mess and disgusting, and I'm pretty sure I saw a couple rats there when I did try to like check it out on a couple of occasions. I think there was occasion where I did make like some eggs, like some scrambled eggs there, like once, because one of the first things I did when I moved down there was I went to this welfare building. I knew I was gonna be incredibly tight on money, and they didn't actually have any welfare services. So in Toronto, I was getting some chunk of money for welfare, but then I was also getting a chunk of money for my dad's passing. And while I was in Vancouver, I only was getting the money for my dad's passing, but then very soon I started getting checks for my mother's disability because she wasn't working. So I was getting up to about $550 from the government every single month. Also, I didn't realize that I would be getting this, but eventually I started getting $1,500 every 6 months from OSAP, my student loan, for being a low-income family. That was what I was getting by with, but I knew I would need something, so I went to the building that would do like welfare stuff, and they're like, yeah, we don't have a program here that just gives people free money. And I'm like, oh, okay, what do you have available? And they're like, well, we can give you boxes of food. But the problem was that to obtain this, I would have had to go at first I was getting it there, which was a very, very long walk away, and I had to go through some of the worst streets. Hastings Street in Vancouver is literally known as the worst street. You see like needles all over the floor. Like it's disgusting, like the whole way down. Lots of homeless people. It's a mess. It's disgusting. It's sad. It's you always have people coming up to you asking for money. It's like, dude, I don't have any money either. Like, I'm a broke college student, sorry. And their eyes are just like bug-eyed because they're clearly on drugs. And so I would make this really long walk to this center to pick up like a little box of food. You would get like some apples, some onions, some other things, and that only lasted like 1 or 2 months. And then I'm like, okay, well, we're moving your location to a church in East, it might have been West Vancouver. And I'm like, I would have to take the bus all the way there and all the way back. Like, A, that would take hours, B, that would cost money for me to go there and get it. So it didn't even end up being worth it. Obviously, I'm like, well, I need to find a job, right? And the first thing, like, me talking about going to this building actually happened a little bit in the future. Like, I want to say like a week to 2 weeks in the future. I'm already attending classes at this point. But right off the bat, when I first get to Vancouver, I spent the first evening when I got into my room, there's no bedding situation. There's no sheets. There's no pillows. There was like nothing. There was just like a mattress. So what I did is I used my clothing to create like it was cold. I remember, yeah, I slept in the bed the first night using like my coat as a blanket, sweaters, clothing as pillows. That's what I slept with the first night. And in the next day, my goal was to go find a store to buy sheets and a blanket and things. And these were extra expenses that I wasn't even expecting that I would need to spend. Luckily, I had enough money to do this. The first morning that I stayed at this place, I was trying to blow dry my hair. I think I angered one of the other guys that lived at this place. And I heard like stomping around. And then all of a sudden the power went out. And I couldn't blow dry my hair. And I immediately was like, okay, like someone didn't like the fact that I'm using a blow dryer. And so I never used a blow dryer again. I purchased a straightener. It was another expense that I wasn't expecting. And I predominantly just showered at night and used a straightener in the morning because I was not allowed to use my blow dryer. So that was one of like the biggest things that I really, really hated about this place, is like you couldn't even live your own life. Then I did a lot of exploration around Vancouver. So I was literally hopping from coffee shop to coffee shop so I could charge my phone, but essentially I was just walking streets in different directions and getting to know my area. And this one coffee shop that I was at, this one barista, she was really kind. She was talking to me. I think think, oh, she gave me a free on the house, like little, I think I just got like a coffee. Like I couldn't afford anything else, right? Like I was like, I'm not gonna use your space for free, but I'm just gonna get like a drink. I think I got a tea maybe. So this barista, she's definitely older than me, but young. She probably was in her early 20s maybe, maybe mid 20s, I'm not sure. But she was having small talk with me. She gave me a free like breakfast pastry, or it might have been a pastry. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was really nice of her, and it was really good. And I was definitely hungry. I don't think I'd eaten anything. And she had asked me where I was from, what I was doing in Vancouver. I let her know I was there for college and that I was starting soon and that I was from Toronto. And she asked me if I was looking for a job. And immediately I was like, not just yet, but yeah, I'm gonna need a job. And she told me that she would be interested in helping me get some training to get a job at one of the local coffee houses, because there's like many chain coffee shops in Vancouver, and I don't remember which one this one was called in particular, but it was like a Vancouver only, like I've never seen this coffee shop brand name outside of Vancouver, so it's probably Vancouver exclusive for the most part. It was either that day or she asked me to come back on a different day in the evening or something to work the cash register with her, and she would help and show me how to use and operate the cashier register and take orders and things. And I did that with her for a little bit, and then she told me that she would talk to some other people at a different coffee shop and see if I can get a interview going there and to see if I could get a job. And I was stoked. I was like, yes, please. That would be awesome. And so I go to this location the day of the interview, and this girl, she's very stern, this lady. She's about the same age as the girl that was training me at the one coffee shop. I get the vibe that she really doesn't like me. And I remember the location of this coffee shop was off of Hastings. Oh, also the lady that was training me at the one coffee shop location, she had a boyfriend, and her boyfriend was there, and they were both talking to me a little bit, and they asked where I was currently living. And I said I was currently living on Hastings Street, and the boyfriend literally said, no. Don't put on your resume that you live on Hastings Street. They will instantly reject you. Like, that's how bad Hastings Street is in Vancouver. Like, you will literally get rejected because I guess that is literally known for like the druggies. So I'm at this training on Hastings in this coffee shop, and this lady just clearly doesn't seem to really like me, and she's training me and she's having me make the drinks, and she's expecting me to like figure out and memorize the drinks like right away. Like, essentially this is how I feel, and learn like how the machines work. This was all very new to me. I'd never operated one of these things before. I'd never even tried to learn like a recipe for a coffee before. And she just didn't seem to be very patient with me. She didn't seem to like actually care about like the whole interview thing. So towards the end, she was very blunt with me, and she said, I don't think you can work here, because I guess she took me as like really soft and like a pushover. And she said very bluntly, the type of customer that comes in here are like homeless people will come in and have interactions that you need to deal with it as a worker at these corner locations in the Hastings area. Like, that's how bad this area was. And it was crazy. Like, I wasn't used to this. I lived in a relatively safe area where I lived. It was said I lived in a relatively dangerous area in Toronto, but it was nothing compared to like Hastings. Hastings was actually intimidating in Vancouver. Let's just put it that way. So needless to say, I did not get the job. She didn't think I could handle it, particularly the customers, not necessarily the work itself. Understandable. Is what it is. So that was an opportunity that I tried to get a job. Didn't really work out. I was going, you know, like practically door to door, like dollar store, this place, that place, McDonald's, handing out resumes, asking to talk to the manager. Like, I was a very shy and quiet individual, but I knew what I had to do. I was on a mission, and I knew what I was taught to do it the right way and to get a job. And I tried everything, right? Like I did not have Hastings on my resume. I made sure that was not a thing. And I was even, I was going to this one like workforce. It was a free to go to use printers and things like that and use computers and try to get a job. It was a free resource for people. And there would be people that would talk to you and assist you in using the computer, the printer, and getting a little bit of help on your resume and things like that. So I did have that resource available I found online. The internet, I have to mention the internet really quick at my place that I was staying at. It was advertised as having internet. Now, when you try to access the internet, you'd be lucky if you could load one page. Checking your emails was impossible. So predominantly like getting internet connection, I could not be at my place. I had to go to a coffee shop, and specifically like I would go down the street and go to like a coffee shop or like McDonald's or something and get like a little drink. And I think around that time I did start drinking black coffee and use the internet because I had no internet at the place that I was staying at. So that was a bust. I remained hopeful. I remember I did get an interview at a McDonald's and I did the interview. And I remember when I was leaving the interview, there was a couple like almost like hoodlum looking people like outside of the McDonald's. And they seemed to like recognize me and they tried to get my attention. And I thought they were like hoodlums, really creepy. So I quickly was like, what? No. And the manager or the person that was interviewing me was seeing me out. And when they saw the interaction, I still feel like to this day, that's why I didn't get the job at McDonald's. So they probably saw that interaction. It was like, oh, what kind of people did this girl hang out with? So I don't know, I feel like that's the reason why I didn't get it. And a lot of other places told me to, like, your hours aren't really like flexible, because the school that I was going to, when I finally went in to see the school and get my class schedule and attend all of my classes for the first day of school, the class system was a little weird. There was morning classes, there's afternoon classes, and there's evening classes. I do not remember how many days a week I did have school, but every semester the days of the week changed, and I did have weekend classes as well as weekday classes. And each class was 4 hours a piece. My schedule was so all over the place, and every semester it changed. And there wasn't really a break. Like, it was a very intensive program. So 3 months of a set schedule, and then the next 3 months your schedule would change. Right off the bat, jumping into classes, I was making friends, and that was one of my goals, was to make friends in my classes, to keep my sanity essentially. One thing that I swore by is I didn't want to date in Vancouver, or at least I didn't want to date anyone in Vancouver, because I didn't want to be stuck in Vancouver. I didn't want to have a reason to stay in Vancouver. So I knew going to Vancouver, every relationship I would have and would make would be fleeting. But I did want to have friends there, so I had some sanity. One person that I'm going to name right off the bat, because we immediately started to bond and get really close, is going to be, I'm going to name this person Dirk. There was a girl that I was getting kind of close with. She was very tomboy-y, but she was also very nerdy and obviously into art. There was a lot of guys in this program, so there wasn't many girls. And this girl was friends with another guy who was like really big on DeviantArt, and he got a scholarship as well. He was one of the scholarship winners. He might have been the top scholarship winner. She was like internet friends with this guy, and they were both attending class together. They were really close together, and I did get really friendly with these two. So Dirk was like my brother's age, and I think I bonded a little bit with him because it was almost like a brotherly, sisterly vibe that I had with him. But we spent a lot of time chatting in classes and looking at each other's art. And the first semester we did a lot of 2D art. We had a life drawing class where you drew naked people. You had a life drawing class pretty much every single semester. There was at least 3 or 4 different life drawing classes for the whole program. And we had a 2D animation class, which is a lot of fun. There was just a drawing class in general, and I think we also had a sculpting class. So you'd be using clay and sculpting like a character, and it started out with using character rotations. That might have actually came in the second semester now I think about it, because the first semester, I think the prequel to that was a character rotations class. We had to do a lot of character design work and then do rotations of those characters. So a lot of 2D art was my first semester, and I also had a Photoshop class, and that was the only digital art class that I had. I had a lot of fun in these classes. I remember the dropout rate throughout the entire program was insane. Like the first life drawing class, the class is so full, there's so many students. And then I remember the last life drawing class in the program towards graduation, there's like nobody there. In this episode, I'm going to be rotating a little bit between school life and friend interactions and real life outside of school stuff that's going on, just to kind of keep things a little consistent but not jumping around too much. I was very diligent about getting my work done, and honestly I was very excited. I remember, even though like the whole mood was really depressing, I was really motivated and inspired. I think the whole social interactions rejuvenated me to some extent, like making friends and enjoying my interactions with people in class and enjoying the content that we were learning and just enjoying the whole atmosphere of it all, despite the fact that it was raining constantly every day. I lived in a really shitty room. I was broke AF. A lot of the times for food, because I couldn't cook anything because of the kitchen, I really did just go to the Safeway, which, I mean, if anyone knows, Safeway is not cheap for groceries at all, but I would just grab things here and there, scraps, and I was eating that because, again, like the welfare, like free food I was getting only lasted like the first couple of, I think, weeks. First couple of weeks. I said months, I meant weeks. And then after that, they moved it to West Van. That would have been a commute and cost, so I didn't do that. It was a struggle, you know, but I was just trying to really focus on getting my school stuff done, and I spent a lot of time doing that, and I did things very thoroughly. But then after, when I was done work, my art assignments, I was bored. I didn't have internet. What was I gonna do? So the first thing that I actually did for work in Vancouver, officially, kind of, is I found a game testing gig that I would get I believe it's a $20 gift card to Best Buy if I did some game testing for like an hour. So I did that. I went to the location, they picked me. You were supposed to like send in like a little bit of an application about you, and I'm like, I'm an art student, I love games, and I'm a female, blah, blah, blah. And they picked me, and so I go there, and as soon as I get there, I realize like this could be really sketchy, this could be really shady. It almost looked like an apartment building or something, and I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And I was outside the building, I was supposed to wait for someone to come get me, and someone came out to get me. They're like an older man, like again, like mid-40s or something, and he brings me into the elevator, and immediately I start like having a panic attack, kind of, because I'm like, I'm alone in an elevator with a stranger that's like middle-aged, and I don't actually know if where I'm going is what they advertise this to be. So I immediately am in a state of panic, and I almost feel like he picked this up from me, even though I was trying to remain calm. But we get upstairs, and we get to like the building area where there's a bunch of like game designers working on games. And I was like, okay, this is legit. Phew. And so they bring me to this room with glass windows, and they bring me an iPad, and I test a couple games for them, and I don't remember what games they were called. And I remember one was like a survival game, one was like a platform jumping game, and I just gave them feedback while also playing the game, and they were like, oh, thank you for your feedback, blah blah blah, here's your gift card. I immediately wanted to spend this money on something entertaining for myself. I did splurge on, I mean, it's Best Buy, right? So like if I'm going to be getting anything, it's going to be like a splurgy thing for the most part. So I went to Best Buy, I was shopping the movie area, because I did have, back then laptops still had a DVD slot, so I could watch some DVDs and movies. And I decided, since I didn't have internet either, I can't like stream TV, I got a couple Supernatural DVDs. I got season 1 and I got season 2 of Supernatural, and this is the first time that I was getting into Supernatural. So I was excited to start watching a series that I thought I might be interested in, and caught my attention, and I loved it so much. I binge watched both seasons. The second job that I got was an actual job. Mind you, I only worked here for 2 weeks, but I was so stoked. I was interviewed for a call center job, and I remember this guy sat me down. We were talking at like a little food court area around like the building where the call center was located, which is very, very close to Gastown. So it was very close to home. It was just a few minutes walk. And he said, you know, you sound really nice, really good on the phone. So we're interviewing you. Here's what we do. We sell vacation package bundles, like $500 vacations. And we're a call center. So you just, you know, you keep calling people down the list, and we're gonna put you through training. I'm gonna have you associated with this one girl that's been here longer, like a couple years, and she's gonna show you the ropes. And if you think you're gonna get a lead, don't worry about it chasing it. Just, you know, give me the phone and I'll try to secure it for you. I was like, okay. And so I'm working at this job and kind of learning the ropes and trying to figure it out. Honestly, I never did. I tried my best. I tried different techniques. I tried to figure it out. A lot of the people that answered on the phone, they thought it was hysterical that I was calling, because clearly they had nothing to do with wanting a vacation package, of having to purchase this vacation. Like, they were clearly not interested. So I felt like I was working for a scam operation, and I just couldn't scam people into paying money for these vacations. So I tried my best. I really did, but I guess I'm just not good at scamming people, you guys. I'm just not good at doing that. At this time, my friend Dirk, that I was getting closer to, who I was going to school with, we started hanging out a little bit after school. He would walk me part way towards home or towards like where I was working, and I didn't want him to walk me all the way to my place. I remember like that was a big thing, like, I don't want you to see where I fucking live. Like, it's cringe, it's disgusting, it's the worst place ever. I hate it. And I was very blatant with him about that. I was like, I literally don't want you to see where I live because it's disgusting. Like, I hate it. And he was very pushy, and he was British. I remember he was British. He had a British accent. He was very pushy about wanting to see where I lived and walk me all the way home. And I was like, no, you're not walking me all the way home. It's cringe, it's disgusting, and I hate it. So he was walking me home partway a little bit. We would chat, we would talk, we'd hang out. And this happened like every day after school for some time. During this whole time too that I was currently in Vancouver, I mean, I'd been in Vancouver maybe a month now. And I told you that Aaron and I were kind of long distance dating, but I let him know through emails or Skype messages when I was at coffee shops to send messages that my internet sucks, I can't send messages. We would kind of give each other updates every now and then about like life, and he would tell me, this happened, blah, 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 and I'd be like, oh, that's so funny, haha. And that went on for a few weeks. And then I remember after I'd worked at this call center for about 2 weeks, the manager or the boss guy pulled me in, and he let me know that I would no longer be working there, but he handed me my 2-week check for 2 weeks pay. And I thanked him, and I was trying to hold back tears because, you know, like, even though I hated the job truly, and I sucked at it, and I couldn't figure it out, I couldn't do it, I felt stable in getting a source of income. And of course I was still getting the government assisted money too, because that's not like an override. So I felt really stable in feeling like I could pay off my student loans with this, I could find a different place with this. Like, that was my stability, right? And so I think part of me feels really like upset over it, but at the same time it's like almost a sigh of relief because I hated the job so much, truly, and I didn't enjoy it and I wasn't good at it. And so that very day after I got back to my place, I was able to load my messages, and Aaron had broken up with me over a message. I mean, I don't blame him to this day. Like, what are you gonna do? It's not like I have the internet to call you and to talk to you. So it was over a message, and he basically said something along the lines of, I can't do long distance dating like this. And so, very understandable. I will never hold that against him. It was what it was. It was just really shitty timing that, you know, I lost my job on the same day that I lost my boyfriend, essentially. But even though, like, I feel like there was always a part of me that knew that this wasn't all that realistic, to think that I can spend, you know, 2 years in school cross country and not having internet and not being able to communicate with this guy. I was really miserable and depressed living in Gastown, and my only source of joy was really going to school, and I was enjoying school. I was enjoying the people there. I really was. It was my only source of joy. I tried to get out as much as possible because being in the room just made me more miserable. I tried to be around people even though I wasn't necessarily interacting. Like, even an interaction, getting like a tea or a coffee at the coffee store or going to buy groceries was a pleasant social experience for me because I was surrounded by other shoppers. I was surrounded by other people having a drink. I was surrounded by people working the cashier registers, and I was just so depressed. I was miserable. I cried a lot in my room, stifling my tears, trying not to be loud. And I remember a couple of times I made phone calls to friends. I made one to Jenny, one or two to Amy, and I remember they were very brief, and they wanted, you know, to see if I was okay. When I called, like, they definitely sounded like a little concerned, but I think they were also like, you know, I can't, you know, just stay here and talk with you. Like, I have my own life too. I'm busy, kind of thing, right? I understood. You know, it's like, yeah, like, I need a friend. I need someone to talk to. Like, I'm struggling, but, you know, you're busy and you have your own life to live. So I remember I started calling my brother. He was plan B to phone call, and like the same thing kind of happened with him too. Like, he was also like, well, I can't stay on the phone forever, but he would have brief conversations with me like once a day. Once in the evening I would try calling him. Fuck. I had a feeling that this would happen, honestly. I mean, it was just like one of the most depressing times in my life, honestly. I promise you it's not as depressing after the story time. The next story times are way more uplifted than this one, but this time period was probably the most I've ever been depressed in my entire life. I'm seriously questioning whether I can even get through today's story time, but I think I can manage. I frequented the Vancouver's library during the first semester that I was attending school. It was my favorite place to go. So I would generally go to the coffee shop in the morning before going to school because it was on the way and I could use that to check emails, messages before going to school. And in the evenings, I would frequent the library. The library wasn't too far of a walk from where I lived. I would generally make a phone call to my brother while heading there or after I spent some time there, and I would go there to do some of my work. I would go there to read different books. I remember I read a lot of books about like biology, and I was always like fascinated about the body. Like, I didn't really care about biology class, but whenever it came to something that I was interested, that I thought might help me learn more about my body to like lose weight or optimize my health, I was always very fascinated. So I was reading a lot of health science books there, and I would also read some art animation books there. They had it was like a 9-floor glass wall library. It was like it was massive. It's probably maybe not the world's largest library, but definitely the largest library in North America. It's massive. You could check books out. I think you could check 1 or 2 books out at a time. I don't remember. I think I might have done that once or twice. I just decided that it was just best to just read books while I was there, put them back, leave, come back. And I would spend a lot of time just hanging out at the library, making phone calls to my brother in the evening, and then go home to my room, sleep, wake up, go to the coffee shop, check some emails, grab a drink, go to school, do my classes, and that just kind of flowed through most of the semester. Now, towards the end of October, since I was getting really friendly with Dirk, he invited me to a Halloween party in West Vancouver. And this time I was pretty stoked to go and hang out with him, even though I was also really nervous because, again, he was like my brother's age, and everyone that was attending this party was going to be people around my brother's age. So I'm like, I'm gonna be a child there. But okay, I'll go. So I met up with him and one of his friends. It was a house party. I remember everyone was kind of like just this misfit. This is my view of things. The person's house it was, the parents were away for something. I don't remember. I do remember one of the kids there mentioned, oh yeah, like I've been living on my own since 16. And I remembered finding him interesting because I remember like, wow, it's pretty much the same story as me. I guess I'm not the only one, and he definitely had it harder if he had to start supporting himself at 16. I remember this one guy there that was Dirk's friend that we went with in a cab to the party together. He was drinking a lot and crying because his girlfriend that was like a makeup artist, she was gone on a work trip for like 3 days, and he was just having like a whole meltdown. And I remember thinking, wow, like adults can't go 3 days without their significant others. It's kind of sad. Even though, I mean, I'd feel like the same way at this point in my life. But at the same time, back then, it's like, wow, like 3 days, come on, suck it up. It's kind of how I felt about it. So Dirk was kind of just there trying to comfort him a little bit. And they asked if I wanted to drink, and I had never drinking before. And at that time, I was kind of against drinking still. So they handed me a can of drink that was a very light alcoholic drink, and I think I took a couple tiny little sips and that was it. And I remember it was getting really late. It was like 1 a.m. and I was like, I should probably leave. I think Dirk tried to offer me like a cab or something. I was like, no, I'll walk. And he's like, you're gonna walk like all the way from West Van to downtown? I was like, yeah, I can walk, I'll walk. And it ended up being like at least like a 2-hour walk from West Van to my place in downtown. So it was a very weird experience, like walking that hour, getting home at like 3 or later in the morning. It was kind of crazy. I remember there was some like 24-hour like coffee shops that was opening. I don't remember if I ended up getting a drink or anything. I remember seeing a lot of homeless people, drunk people on the streets. It was a really weird vibe. I remember I started bonding with Dirk a little bit more, and we were both into watching Supernatural, so he invited me over to his place in West Vancouver to watch Supernatural and make a meal. And we decided to try cooking something. So we went to the grocery store, we picked out some ingredients, and we tried to make, I don't even remember what we tried to make, but we made something and we were watching Supernatural. It was really fun. But I didn't have any romantic interests in him, and he finally started pushing in that direction, and that made me run for the hills. So I don't remember what he said, but towards the end of our time together, when I was at his place, he might have said something like, I like you, or I have feelings for you. And he might have asked if I wanted to be his girlfriend, and I don't remember what I said. I definitely didn't say yes. I don't remember if I said no, and I felt bad, but I just really enjoyed his company. I didn't want any romantic attachments in Vancouver. That's one thing I made really clear. Like, I did not want any connections where I was going to be feeling like I had to stay in Vancouver, because at the end of the day I wanted to go back home to Toronto because that's where my close friends were. I'm gonna get into the wrap up of this story time. So I could not stand living in Gastown in the place I was staying at, and I wanted out really bad, and almost like a guardian angel sent help to me. I'm not religious at all, but like honestly, I was at the library one day. I was leaving the library. There was this kid handing out pamphlets, and I curiously took a pamphlet, and it was advertising a student dorm in North Vancouver, and I was very, very interested. And so this is where I'm going to leave the story time for today. I am going to film like 3 of these back to back, but I do want to keep some sort of like a breakdown with these story times. So I do have a 3 split that I'm doing with a chunk of story time of my life in Vancouver. In my next story time, I am going to be talking about my move to North Vancouver, as well as some changes that take place with my new way of life, I guess, because now I'm not in Gastown anymore, as well as a visit home to Toronto that I do for winter break. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's story time. I know it was a little depressing. I hope it was fascinating. I hope you enjoyed this story time, and if you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe down below, turning on that notifications bell so you don't miss my next story time coming up very soon. Bye for now. Till next time.